Emma, we good to go ahead and get started?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, first, I want to begin by welcoming everybody to our body-worn camera and tribal jurisdictions. Today, we're going to deviate a little bit from what we had scheduled. We have a fairly small group. I want to begin and I'll introduce myself, Dr. Katz, and then, of course, Chief Burge. We would kind of like to begin by asking Chief Burge, once we introduce ourselves, to kind of explain about, give us some background about our police department, about Pueblo of Isleta, and then maybe discuss some of the challenges, if there are any challenges that our department has went through. Of course, tribal agencies are, go through the same challenges that a lot of the smaller police departments throughout the U.S. as do. Of course, budget's always an issue, storage, the same similar things. But we'd kind of like just to see if there's any unique challenges. And then after Chief Burge gets done, we would like to open it up to a group, since it's a small group, for an open discussion about challenges that they may, or even, just ask a question. But I'd like to start, of course, I'll start off. I'm Charles Stevenson. I'm a senior advisor on the body-worn camera TTA. I've been involved with the grants since the very first grant year in 2015. I've worked with several of the tribal agencies to implement body-worn cameras. Prior to my involvement with body-worn camera, I've been involved with various other technical projects. I started following body-worn cameras probably about 15 years ago. I will say body-worn cameras have evolved. They're continuing to evolve, but they do kind of present a challenge. And that's what today's is, because we really kind of like to focus in on maybe the challenges that a tribal agency will have, or a small agency. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Katz for him to introduce himself.
Yes, Charles Katz. I'm director of the Center for Violence Prevention and a professor in criminology and criminal justice at Arizona State University. I started off working on body-worn cameras with the Phoenix Police Department back in about 2013, 2014. Since then, have been working with BJA and CNA and JSS on matters related to providing technical assistance to agencies related to body-worn cameras. A lot of my early work was focused with Phoenix Police Department, and then expanded to some other agencies, as well as worked on the early development of the toolkit that Bureau of Justice Assistance put together. And then I've been working with a number of you folks over the past several years in providing technical assistance along the way in terms of policy, rolling out of body-worn cameras, and dealing with a lot of evaluation-oriented issues. Once again, this is intended to be a small group. We anticipated fewer than 20 people would be here, so we're really hoping that people will be lifting the mute button off, and we'll be able to join in on the conversation, or we'll be able to type your comments into the chat function that we have here on Zoom, and hopefully get a larger dialogue going. But I know we certainly appreciate the chiefs taking the time, the chief to take the time to meet with us today. I'll turn it over to you, Chief Burge.
You froze up, so I take it's my turn.
Yes, sir.
All right. My name is Robin Burge. I'm the newly appointed police chief at the Pueblo of Isleta. So we're about 7 minutes south of Albuquerque. That's our major metro area. We have about 495 square miles of land that we cover. So we have 28 officers, and we also have some range patrol, or open space we call them, and they are all male because we are a very traditional tribe. So they patrol our rangelands where we have a lot of our sacred land is. That's one reason why they're all male. And all of our male officers, 2 times a year, we close the entire Pueblo to non-natives. So people traveling, say, from Albuquerque further south to Las Lunas, you can't cut through the Pueblo on a Pueblo street. You have to stay on the main thoroughfares. So we have 3 thoroughfares that go through our Pueblo. So we do have a lot of vehicular traffic. We have 4 IHSP officers. They're on a grant by the Indian Highway Safety Program. So we stay pretty busy for our area. Our major employer obviously is our casino. It's a pretty big casino. We fluctuate anywhere between second and third in income brought in according to monthly stats from other casinos in the area in New Mexico. So we're pretty popular. We're on a soft opening now because of COVID. So we're still under a COVID restriction. We have our own tribal health order, which we still have in effect. We're still under a mask mandate. We have a health officer. One of the reasons we do that is because our elders are very sacred to us. They're the ones that are passing down all this information. We don't do a lot of documentation or a lot of things by hand. So the information that the elders pass down to us is all verbal storytelling, and that's how they learn their traditions, cooking, and stuff like that. So our elders are very sacred to us. Having said that, our children, those are our prime things. So our elders and our children, the ones coming up, we want them to learn stuff that the elders are teaching them. So back to the police departments, we run a community-based policing model. We run it, I'm new here. I've been here for 7 years. I'm the new police chief. So we've always ran community-based policing. We got a little away from it, I would say, last 3 or 4 years. We got a little relaxed. I'm not going to say that's the reason we went to the cameras, but it could be one reason why was for building that trust back up with our community and getting them back and getting us back involved in the community, the officers back involved. So it's a two-way street for us. It's working out pretty good. I expect a lot. So I will tell you, when we got the cameras in November of 2019, I've been in law enforcement for over 33 years, so I wasn't a big fan of them. I believe officers still have credibility. What we say, I believe, happens. You know, every once in a while we have a bad apple, not very often, but so I believe with these cameras, we've totally gotten away with that. So in one of our local metropolitan courts, it's the biggest court in New Mexico. They do all misdemeanors. If the police officer doesn't have audio and a video, they pretty much won't hear the case. If the cameras are issued to that department. So if you have your camera, but it's not turned on, but you have audio, but you don't have video, they won't hear it. So they become really dependent on them. So we got ours in November of 2019. We had a training, and we had about 15 days as a learning curve, let's say. So everybody could get used to turning them on, playing with them. December 1st, 2019 is when we went live, and they were mandatory. So we had an SOP. I tweaked the SOP when I took over to, I believe every officer needed to wear a camera. I believe in equality, and I don't believe in, I think some people really need, like detectives, they should always wear a camera because they're out contacting people one-on-one, getting, verbal permission to search, and we just get over that right away. We have proof that the person gave us a verbal permission. So I tweaked our SOP to fit where we were going as a police department. So every police officer has to wear one. The only time, now here's the catch for tribal stuff. So if we have, so part of our sacred land is where the village originated in. It's a very small area, but we call it the village proper. So, and it's like your typical Indian pueblo that you see on TV, the old adobe flat roofs homes. They don't have air conditioners because of the adobes, very traditional. And so there's a small area where those are at. Some of those homes have special rooms in them where they hold all their sacred stuff and stuff that they use for traditional doings. So anything like that, me being a white, I can't even see it, and obviously we can't have it on video. The family members, when we go in there on any type of call, it doesn't, and we have a variety of calls that we go to in families. They're pretty good with us, and they'll say, hey, this is our room. We don't want you looking in there. Or, do you have your camera on? Can you turn it off? And we abide by them. You know, they're really good with us about it. And we've been in there before, so chances are we kind of already know. So most of those rooms are in that special village area. So, and we already know where they're at because the families are really, really good with us. The other times we can't use it is during when we have feast. We're down there once again because we run community-based policing. So we have feast down at our church, and it's a huge area. It's a huge church. And if something goes down, they expect us to take action, obviously, because we're there. But we also can't video during those things. So those are two of the two unusual things that you'll find with us as opposed to a metropolitan police department.
Chief, kind of one question came to mind. Because it is such a large area, do all your officers report to a central location every day and pick up their camera? Or are some, you know, further out, maybe they come in once or twice a week, or how do you work that? I mean, are there any issues with issuing the cameras, charging the cameras, uploading the video files from the cameras?
So we have a police station, and we have a docking station where we dock all of we have watch guard is ours, and we have the bigger ones. So per the SOP, you have to dock them after your shift because we have to clock in and out. So you clock them, you dock them after you clock out, and then it downloads. And then in the morning when you clock back in, you pick it back up, and then it's ready to roll. If you're on call, like for me, I cover calls sometimes because we're short on detectives. So I'll dock mine like during the day, but I'll take it home with me. We have home chargers too. So it being charged and being at the docking station is not an excuse not to have it on a call, because we do have home chargers. So once we dock it, I wish it was a little bit. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I apologize for interrupting you.
The one with a system that we use, I wish it was a little bit more user friendly for the police officers. Like, we do our own discovery. We don't have somebody that comes in and does it for us. We have to do our own. So like me, I'm not too comfortable around the computers. And we have some young kids who, you know, if you want your phone fixed, you find a 10-year-old. So we have a bunch of young guys who are really computer literate, but, you know, trying to figure out how to download the videos was a little tough at first. We have it down now, but we wasted some time, I think, trying to figure out how to download them. It just wasn't too user friendly.
So it's safe to say and this is probably in general for a smaller agency, ease of use when it comes to the technology, when it comes to the hardware and the software is really important, because you don't have a technical staff that can do things. Also, what I was going to ask you is, you mentioned that that every officer has a camera. A lot of our departments only issue their cameras to the uniformed officers. Did you get any pushback from the plainclothes officers?
I did. I did. But those are some tough decisions that you have to make. And I made them. I know I made the right decision. I was a detective for more than half of my career, and I know if anybody needs to be wearing those cameras, it needs to be the detectives. A little pushback. I know it is what it is, but it worked out.
And now that they've been using them for a while, has there their has their minds changed? I know what happens with a lot of what we hear quite frequently. Those that have pushed back initially change their mind in the end, and probably are some of the biggest advocates of wearing body worn cameras. Has any of that occurred, or they just accept it?
It's about, they'd say 80% of people accepted it. Old school people like me, I did accept it. Some of the older officers still have a problem with it, and I understand. I get it where it's coming from. But we gotta, it's 2021 and we just gotta go with the flow. We can't, it is what it is, and we gotta abide by it.
If I remember right about Pueblo of Isleta, you also have a local tribal court?
Yes.
How do body worn cameras, how does the video play into that? Because you said that the New Mexico courts, they more or less are expecting body worn camera video now. How does your local court?
They're not as tough as it is. We got a really good relationship, the police department with the courts, like most police departments do. And they like it. They don't require it. It's not going to be a deal breaker for your case or for a plea, because, they know us. They're around us all the time. They know we have integrity. They just know us. So it's not going to be a deal breaker if we don't have it. And a lot of times, so there's different ways to attach it to your uniform. And then for women, because we have this curve, so I don't know if you can see these little magnets. So that's what we use. But the magnets don't fall off, but the camera falls off a lot. The other thing that happens with the cameras that we have, if they do the ones where the prongs that stick into your uniform, we have the outer carriers, some of the men like the outer carriers. So they have it, but then when you see that and then they take off running and then your camera is just bouncing and it's hard to, sometimes the cameras fall off, but sometimes it's difficult, I guess, and it's just not very good video. That would be my other complaint, would be the attachments.
Yeah, Chief, thank you very much. This is really helpful. One of the things that I was hoping that we might be able to cover is the onboarding process. As you establish your body-worn camera program, what was the communication like between the department and the community? In other words, you talked a little bit about what's off limits in terms of body-worn cameras. What did that process look like? I assume that in part, and this is an assumption, that some of your officers, had some feedback and said, we think this is appropriate, we think this is not. I'm assuming that your elders had feedback in terms of what was appropriate, what was not. What ended up sticking, and what were things you were able to negotiate your way through and perhaps move in a different direction than what was offered by the community or by officers, and how did that work its way out?
So we did a lot of pre-planning, knowing that we were going to be going live in December. So we have a newsletter that goes out. So we put it in the newsletter to make everybody aware that we're going to be having these cameras on. We had several community meetings within that time span. We're getting these cameras, and we kept warning people, we're going to have these cameras, we're going to have these cameras. So by the time we got them, and they're kind of big, but so then they would say, oh, you guys got the cameras? Yep. And there'll be, are they recording me? Yep. If the two lights are on, we're recording you. So they were pretty cool about it. The elders, on the other hand, they'll ask you to turn them off, and generally we do. They don't like any video or, they're just typical. They just don't like being on video. and they're old school people, you
Right.
know, so it's like, okay, we'll just turn them off for you. And so it's no big deal. But the younger generation and the people that we deal with, it was probably 1 or 2 calls with them. And then after that, they were like already used to it. But yeah, the elders don't like them. Male and female don't.
So did they have was there an organized effort on their part to be able to guide their use? Or did this happen just more one-on-one and a culture developed in terms of what's acceptable and what's not?
I quite don't understand.
So was this a formal process that you went through, or was it just more informal in terms of what was going to be accepted by the elders?
It was kind of both. The elders are pretty much involved in our community. So when we would have meetings or, you know, they're the ones that read the newspaper every day. You know, our newspaper comes out once a month. We have old time bulletin boards at the end of large streets, big old pieces of plywood, and we staple announcements on them. So there were announcements on there that we were going to be issuing these cameras and we were going to be wearing them. So they knew, and they're, you know, if they accept it and they're not making a big deal about it, then their family members and everybody else kind of fall in line. And it makes it a lot easier for the police department. So overall, the community did really, I think in my opinion, I think they did really well with it.
Who pushed for the idea of body-worn cameras coming on board? Was it the police? Was it the elders? Was it some folks within your community? How did that process unfold in terms of the adoption of body-worn cameras in the police department?
So we had been through well, I was a sergeant before I got this position. So the prior command had been throwing it around because some of our cases do go to that metro court that I was telling you guys about. Some of our cases do go felony and some drug stuff, gun stuff, and they were requiring the same thing. So we were kind of throwing it around. I will tell you at first, I didn't like it because I gave you my reasoning. And we knew that the state was probably going to start mandating it here shortly because there was some talk that the governor was going to issue a mandate on them. So we were just trying to get a whole, you know, a jump on it and find some money. And so shortly, I think 6 months after we got ours, the state issued that mandate. Okay. So now every department in New Mexico has to wear one.
Would you be able to speak to what would you say if you had to name 1 or 2 success stories that sort of help propel the body-worn camera program in your agency forward? Would you be able to share some of those with us?
So we don't have a problem with use of force here, thank goodness. So we are able to, initially I was going to have it where we pick 3 officers and we review a 3-minute video and then a 5-minute video, just to, you know, do some checks and balances on it. And then I got to thinking, well, we really don't have that many officers, so we could review every video. So between me, my lieutenant, and my captain, we review every video to ensure that there's no misconduct on it.
Wow. And
we don't have a problem with use of force or anything like that. So that's really been an advantage for us. The use of force we do have every once in a while, it's not a huge thing, or tasings. So those help us in court a lot. Showing bad behavior by the person, and then they end up getting tased for running from us or not complying in some fashion. So as far as civil lawsuits, we don't see a lot of those because they have to go through the federal government to get to us. So we're not like a metropolitan police department where you have huge amount of civil lawsuits. We just don't see that. But it does help us review stuff and see where our officers are at. And, you know, on some domestic violence stuff, we like to see how the officers are interviewing people. Do they need assistance in some sort of a training? Making sure everything's taken care of. So they help us more than bad guy, I guess.
Interesting.
We use them a lot to improve our department.
Kind of going off of what you said, since you do review all the videos, has it resulted in you changing policies and procedures in other areas? You mentioned one, domestic violence, how an officer approaches a domestic violence issue. But has it resulted in that you change, that maybe you spotted something that could be done a little bit differently, or a little bit, achieve a different outcome, a better outcome, maybe, where this now allows you to take a look at the whole department and their actions out there on calls?
Not so much policy, but maybe on our training. So say like maybe securing a scene on the freeway that's a fatal, and it's not locked down and we have people running all over, and it's like, so we can look at the video and say, maybe you guys should have shut this lane down, or you should have done this. And it's just giving them extra ideas on what to do, and some more options that they can put in, because they don't have a lot of experience. We don't have a high call volume. So some of our officers started here at Isleta, so they've only been here like 3 or 4 years. So their call volume compared to another officer is really, really low. So I think anything we can do to help and give somebody else some good ideas and improve, open their mind up to how they're thinking and give them additional ideas, and, because there's more than one way to do things, and I'm open to, there's more than one way to do things as long as it gets done and it gets done efficiently. So, we use it a lot to help the person and give them ideas. Every once in a while, we'll see an officer safety thing, but by the time we review it, they've already talked about it after the call and says, oh, I shouldn't have let that lady in that room, or, I walked by that guy and I didn't clear that room, or something along those lines. So they're pretty good about self-evaluating after each call, huddling up together and seeing where they're at. And those kinds of things we're really pushing on our young officers, because I think, I know the older you get, you kind of lose that going back and reevaluating and fixing things. But so we really push on them getting together at the end of a call, especially if we're on it, somebody from command staff's on it, and we'll huddle up and we'll say, okay, what could we have done better? Man, you shouldn't have walked by that open door. Oh yeah, I forgot. And, just food for thought, and so they don't make the same mistake again.
I don't know how much you were involved in initial policy development, but you did mention that you changed the policy when you became chief. Is there anything? Was the process a little bit different? Did the elders have to? Is there a process of approval? Anything that you have to go through, or how much did the community and those outside the police department play in the policy development and policy approval?
So anytime we do a policy approval or a SOP update, I answer directly to the governor. So I update it. I meet with him. I tell him why. And then it has to go in front of our tribal council. So we have 7 tribal council members. And so you give them the old stuff, and then you give them the new stuff, and you tell them why and why it's better. And we haven't had any problems with any, we're slowly going through our SOP. We're doing priority because we're a little behind on our SOP. It hasn't been updated for some time. So, but the body worn cameras was the first one. Because everybody, I'm about fairness, and everybody needs to be treated the same, and everybody needs to wear a camera.
As far as when you do have digital evidence, video evidence, how is that shared with your prosecutors? I would imagine you probably burn it DVD or thumb drive, or is it a link? How is kind of that? How does that process? How are they alerted that there may be video evidence, and then how does that whole process kind of work?
So if we have lapel video, it has to be documented in our police report that there's lapel. If there isn't, you got to document why there isn't. So if there isn't and it's not a reasonable excuse, we discuss it. So if there is, we have our rules in tribal court are a little different than our rules in the state court nearby. So we have 48 hours to get our discovery done. So one of the things I did change was that you got to have your discovery done within 48 hours. So that's every officer's lapel and our CADs. And if you're at the casino has surveillance footage, obviously. So those are generally our discovery. So we got 48 hours to do that. And the other thing I changed was if a defense attorney wants to come in and review to make sure that all the video matches, they could come in and look at our whole entire docking system. I changed that, and now we tag in evidence an original, and then we give working copies as our discovery to their DA's office. So the defense attorney or any defense investigators don't come in to our building and look at our whole entire docking system. They look at one DVD that's tagged downstairs, or 2 DVDs.
As far as any type of redaction or say maybe it's an image of a child that wasn't involved, but it got inadvertently captured on the video. Do you do all your own redaction and when you give it to the courts, or?
We haven't come across that yet. But as far as being able to alter them and all that stuff, we can do
it. As far as any type of Freedom of Information Act request, or maybe you captured an officer doing something heroic, outstanding, something really good for the community. Do you share any of the videos with the community, or have you had any FOIA requests?
So we do not have an Open Records Act. It's kind of nice, actually. We can kind of pick and choose, I guess. So anything that somebody asks, because we do have a couple of watchdog groups here. So when they ask for them, they want, generally it's going to be something bad. So anytime anybody asks for something, I have to go to the governor and ask for approval, and he'll say, what is it? So I have the video, he watches it. So he has the ultimate decision in yes or no. So somebody wants it for, say, some civil discovery, like on a land dispute or something similar like that. We set our own prices, so we charge them $100 just to discourage it, because we don't want the videos to end up in court and then end up on social media, because they are a very private community. They're very, very traditional. We don't even allow drones. We don't even have drones to do our fatal accidents. So they're very traditional, and they want to stay traditional. So the governor controls that pretty well. But any arrest we make, any summons we do, anything like that, the discovery goes to the DA's office.
What advice would you have for other agencies that are similar to yours, in terms of maybe 3 things that you would ask them to consider before adopting a body-worn camera program? Obviously,
definitely the community. You got to have a good relationship with the community, because you're running around videotaping them, and really nobody likes that. So when I was assigned, we really have been pushing this community-based policing. So it's really been working out in our favor as far as gaining the trust back with the community. We're having, we attend every community event. COVID has kind of put a hamper on some of our stuff, because they usually have 1 or 2 events a month. So you definitely got to get the community buy-in. And I think the officers need to know, even though like I'm white and I'm female, I still know like some of the traditional stuff, and some things I'm not to know, but like the other officers tell us. So we know not to be doing specific things, you know, and that includes obviously with the camera, not even us being there, but obviously the camera won't be there. So knowing your community and knowing the traditional things is important. They're very secretive about their, at least at Isleta, because they're very traditional. So you have to be very careful that you don't break their trust. And if you break it once, forget it. They'll never trust you again. It's like you'll work and work and work, and maybe you'll get it, but man, they're tough.
Yeah,
They're tough once you break that trust.
I think that's the interesting, one of the interesting issues that your agency is faced with is, on the one hand, you have this tool that is designed for transparency in a number of different ways, and on the other hand, you need to abide by the cultural attributes of a community and make sure that people are comfortable with its use, and if they're not, right, negotiate how this is all going to play out. And I do think that's an especially complex issue that your community faces compared to many other communities that are perhaps governed in different ways.
It is, you know, and we're lucky. The police department's lucky. We got a good governor, a good administration, and they back us. So, you know, and the governor will come in every once in a while and say, hey, I want to see what happened at this call, and we'll pull up the video, and he'll be like, oh, okay. Cause his phone rings all the time, and it'll be like, oh, I got a ticket and I wasn't doing anything. And then you'll look at the video and, you know, you're speeding, you're being a little uncooperative with the police officer. I don't like that. So, and word spreads fast, you know, word spreads fast down here. So, you know, they know that, and the officers know that the governor is pro-police, which really helps us a lot. The courts, we get to have a good relationship with the courts, which I really like, and I think we should be all on that same team. You know, we all have the same vision. So it's working out pretty good for us right now.
Well, I think we do have a little bit of time left. We would kind of, first, Chief Birch, thank you. This has been a great discussion. Well, we kind of like to open it up now to all our viewers and everything, and see if there's any questions.
Hey, Charles, this is John Markovic. So, Chief, it was interested how much you're talking about the influence of the state in your jurisdiction. So, my experience, just it's not extensive with tribes, is that, you know, they're federal, often, and not, I guess not always, federal independent entities. So you seem to have a lot of interaction and need to comply with state mandates. Could you unwrap that a little bit?
So our jurisdiction lies, so we have 3 jurisdictions or 3 counties. So, and priority is obviously our jurisdiction is the Pueblo, so we're a priority. And on the north and south side, we have 2 counties. Valencia County, which has a state district court, and Bernalillo County, which has a state district court. So our casino sits in Bernalillo County. So all non-natives either go to Bernalillo County or they go to Valencia County.
Gotcha.
So we do have a couple of federal cases. We're all federally certified to do some cases. Those would be our gun cases, some child abuse, drug and gun case, great bodily harm, vehicular great bodily harm. The feds will take those cases from us, and we have a really good working relationship with them. But generally, most of our non-native stuff will go to the local jurisdiction.
Great. That makes sense. Yeah. Thanks.
Other questions?
We have a quiet group here.
Like it.
Chief, as far as sustaining your body worn camera program, is the state going to help out, or what's going to happen coming down the road when your body worn cameras meet the end of their life cycle?
Hopefully we'll be prepared. We'll look for another grant. If not, you can present to council and ask them for funds, and then you advise them why. And they're really, really good. They're really good for the police department. They're really good with us. They give us new positions. So far, they've been very, very forthcoming with their money. So I'm assuming it will continue.
And Chief, have you dealt with any public information requests for body-worn camera footage, or pretty much limited to lawyers coming in and looking at footage?
Limited to lawyers. That's the great thing about being sovereign.
Right.
Great thing about being sovereign.
And I think you mentioned that a lot of the things that the lawyers might be looking at are civil in nature.
Yeah, like we have some land disputes or child custody issues. Mostly it's land stuff, and then they know we wear cameras, so they want to see, you know, I want you to see little Johnny standing on mom's property, so I want to get this video. And the court's like, well, all you got to do is tell us that little Johnny was on the property, and you know, we'll believe you. But you know, I think they like the video as much as we do, but the courts don't really require it because they're a traditional court. So when it comes to anything traditional land and all that stuff, they're a traditional court. But some people, they're usually younger, you know, 30s and below, that come in and say, I want that lapel camera because I want to show little Johnny was on my property. Every once in a while, and that's when that $100 comes in, and then they're like, oh, oof, I don't know if I don't have $100.
Yeah, makes sense.
You did mention that you've had some things that the equipment hasn't performed like you would have liked it to, as far as attaching to the uniform and stuff. In the future, will you be looking at other manufacturers, other vendors? And I, you know, I'm not, you know, not by name or anything, but I know you mentioned that you weren't quite happy with your current equipment.
I would like something smaller, user friendly, and probably something another department uses that's had success with it. There's a few other departments that use the same brand we do. And then when we go to the meetings about some other stuff, they'll ask us, well, what cameras do you guys wear? And we'll tell them, and you know, they're having some of the same issues. So, you know, thank goodness when one falls off, the officer sees that it falls off and they're there to grab it. I lost mine in the middle of an intersection. I went back to get it and it wasn't ran over, thank goodness. But yeah, these just don't attach that well.
So I did a segment on testing and evaluation on the first day. So from what I'm hearing, it's very important for maybe those that are participating in our group that you look at, you test out before you make that final decision, what you're going to go with. Maybe talk to the other departments. Like the chief saying, they share information, they know what works, what doesn't work well. So I think that's a really important point, especially for smaller departments, that it's the budget is an issue, and it's hard to change once. And as far as I would imagine, you have on-premise, on-site storage. How's that working out for you?
Good. It's not very big. You know, we don't have a lot that we have to in our evidence unit. So if we do make an arrest or something along those lines, we do keep it, you know, the statute of limitations, we keep it and then we'll clear it out. We keep our docking system pretty cleaned up. You know, when we first got him, we were pushing the on button, the off button, testing it. So that ate up a bunch of memory. So we cleared that up a couple months ago. So that freed us up a lot. Some people were forgetting to turn them off when they got home. So it ran 8 hours until the battery died. So we cleaned that up a lot. So that helped us a bit. So we maintain it. So that's helped.
How many hours in a shift would an officer typically activate their cameras, roughly?
So I would say day shift. So I have 3 shifts, obviously. Day shift, maybe 5 to 6.
Mhm.
Swing is pretty busy, so maybe 6. Graveyard, we could go a whole night without a call. So graveyard kind of fluctuates between if they do a traffic stop, if they get a DWI. If we happen to take somebody unruly down to our booking room, we run it the whole time. So the battery life is pretty good on them. I can't complain about that.
So there's a lot
Battery
of,
life is pretty good.
yeah, there's a lot of variation by shift and by the type of activity in terms of activation, right?
Yeah. So, never going to a good call or, most officers turn it on right away as they're driving. We have a 30-second delay. So they turn it on right away. And so that helps a lot. And then they don't have to worry about it when they get out. So they picked up on some good little cheating things that have really helped us and got us going good.
Right.
So
Well, I think we have about a minute left in this session. Again, Chief Verge, I want to thank you. I want to thank Dr. Katz and everything. If anyone on today's session has any questions or anything, please email the Body-worn camera TTA if you think of a question afterwards, and we'll be happy to get back to you. And Emma, will everybody be pushed back into the main session?
I don't believe so. I believe you have to go back into Huba and then go ahead and select the other Zoom link for the next session.
Great. Well, Chief, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
thank you
Chief.
guys for having us. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Thanks.
You guys too. Thank you.